Former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou left the UFC nearly 3 years ago after contract negotiations went stale with the UFC. Now, this weekend, after fighting Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua in boxing, he finally makes his return to MMA at PFL Battle of the Giants, Brace for Impact, against 2023 season champion heavyweight Renan Ferreira. Now, today we're going to get into that fight, and we're going to talk about how this could be a very brutal exit for Francis Ngannou from the sport. Stick around to hear my thoughts on Ferreira versus Ngannou. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. All right, guys, so before we get into the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Become a channel member if you'd like extra content. Thank you very much. Back to the video. All right, guys, so this weekend, Francis Ngannou makes his long-awaited return to MMA, where he will fight for the PFL in their Super Fights pay-per-view. Francis Ngannou versus Renan Ferreira. We have some other good fights on the card that I went over in a video yesterday, but today we're actually talking about specifically this fight because there's a lot going into this. Francis Ngannou, former UFC heavyweight champion, left the UFC amid contract negotiations. Many of us MMA fans thought that we were going to see Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou in the UFC. Francis actually left the sport altogether and went and boxed for over 2 years, where he bagged 2 massive paydays against Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And now here he is in something that kind of feels like him just keeping his word. It doesn't feel like he's incredibly fired up for this fight. It doesn't seem like he's promoting it very hard. It sounds like he's showing up to get this paycheck and to complete an obligation that he made to the PFL, keeping his word because they let him go box. Now, that mindset that I'm thinking about for Francis is actually very dangerous in a fight in general, specifically in a fight against Renan Ferreira, who is somebody that hasn't had, his big breakthrough moment. And I say that because he was a PFL champion. He did get the $1 million tournament prize, but it's the PFL. This fight is against a former UFC champion, someone that's coming off of 2 massive boxing fights against Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. This would be potentially, I doubt that the PFL would take advantage of it, but I think that this could be a very big star-making performance for Renan Ferreira, where if he just leaves Ngannou completely unconscious, we might be looking at him as the most dangerous heavyweight in MMA. The PFL definitely has a lot riding on Francis Ngannou, and I'm sure that they're hoping that he wins, even though they're going to say publicly that whoever wins, wins. They promote whoever their champion is, whatever. The PFL wants Francis to win. They brought him in. They gave him equity, I think. They gave him a bunch of money. They gave him the freedom to go box. They let him head up the African MMA scene for PFL. They gave a lot to Francis, and if all they get is one fight where he gets knocked out, they're going to be pissed. I've been thinking about this for months, thinking that Francis is actually going to get completely smoked, and that's what I worry about, is that Francis is not going to have the same distance management and footwork, and he's definitely not going to be able to defend a takedown if it comes to that because of his time in boxing. Another thing that I worry about is the size difference, because Francis is 6'4", 6'5". Renan Ferreira is 6'8"-ish, maybe 6'7", maybe he's 6'9", but he's way bigger than Francis. Weight-wise, they're probably close to the same in cage, but Ferreira is long and very explosive. He has murked some very good heavyweights. He beat Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader's a tiny heavyweight, so I don't rate him a whole lot for that. But in terms of this Francis Ngannou fight, I think it's going to go one of 2 ways. I think, one, because it's heavyweight MMA. I think that there's the possibility that both of these guys are exhausted by minute 6. I think that whoever wins, it's going to be in vicious fashion with a knockout. Both of these guys are big and hit hard. We've seen Francis get knocked out very recently. That doesn't help his case here for taking a big punch against a guy like Renan Ferreira. I'm actually genuinely nervous for Francis Ngannou in this fight. But with that said, he is the guy with the more high-level experience. Alistair Overeem, Stipe, twice, Ciryl Gane. He's dealt with great strikers, and he's dealt with wrestling to a certain degree, and I don't think Ferreira is going to try to wrestle him. So although I'm sitting here saying Francis is here for a paycheck, doesn't seem motivated, was doing boxing, so he hasn't been training MMA. With all those things said, Francis is one of those guys that has been backed into a corner many a times in his life. He was poor, he was homeless, all those things. The UFC backed him into a corner, and he went and found another bag to go make. I think that Francis Ngannou is fighting for his own reputation, given that this is his first fight outside the UFC that is an MMA fight, and his 2 losses in boxing, and the fact that people think he's washed, and Dana White talks shit about him. And on top of that, I hate to say it, but he had a son pass away. I think Francis is fighting for reputation and for himself. And I think that all the X's and O's aside, got to take into the dog that someone has in them. And I think that Francis has become hardened over this course of his early life, BS with the UFC where they wouldn't pay him more, wouldn't get him the Jones fight, all of that. Then he leaves, has these big boxing paydays where he doesn't get the win. I think Francis is going to look amazing. I have every reason to think that he gets absolutely smoked by Renan Ferreira, and I just have a gut feeling that Francis is going to go out there and land something big during an exchange with Renan Ferreira, and he's going to just flatline Renan Ferreira. So that is my official prediction, is a first-round knockout for Francis Ngannou. This is the PFL, so of course they're not going to take advantage of a big moment. They don't know how to promote, and neither does the UFC these days in some ways, but I'm taking Francis Ngannou by first round knockout. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, then become a channel member today for access to members only live streams, vlogs, and some other members perks. So click the link in the description down below or the join button on our channel homepage to become a member today. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World, and go check out my weekly comedy podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo. Both of those are linked in the description down below. Go watch this suggested video, and we'll see you next time.